إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, seek His aid and ask His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of ourselves and from the evils of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, none can lead astray. And whomsoever Allah leads astray, none can guide. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except for Allah alone, having no partner. And I bear witness that Muhammad is a slave and messenger. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih. O you who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. And do not die except in a state of Islam with full and complete submission to Allah. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. O mankind, be dutiful to your Lord, who created you from Adam, single person, and from him He created his wife, and from them both He created many men and women, and fear Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights, and do not cut the relations of your relatives, surely Allah is ever and all watcher over you. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. O you who believe, keep your duty to Allah and speak always the truth. He will direct you to do righteous good deeds and He will forgive your sins. And whosoever obeys Allah and His Messenger has indeed achieved a great achievement, and that is he will be made to enter paradise and he will be saved from the hellfire. أما بعد, to proceed, فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله. The best of talks, beyond any doubt, is the Quran, the Book of Allah. وأحسن الهدي هدي Muhammad, and the best of guidance, beyond any doubt, is the guidance of His Messenger Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها. And by the most evil of all matters in Islam are the ones innovated. فإن كل محدثة بدعة. For verily every newly innovated matter in Islam is an innovation. وَكُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. And every innovation in Islam is a misguidance. وَكُلَّ ضَلَالَةٍ فِي النَّارِ. And every misguidance will lead to the hellfire. Ibad Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sends His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to guide the people to the haqq. And He puts on His shoulder that you have to convey the message. يا أيها الرسول بلغ ما أنزل إليك من ربك وإن لم تفعل فما بلغت رسالته. O Messenger of Allah, convey the message from your Lord. For if you haven't done so, then you did not complete your mission. وَاللَّهُ يَعْصِمُكَ مِنَ النَّاسِ. And Allah will protect you from the people. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had put himself, his wealth, his blood, his family, all the companions for the sake of passing this deen. We see, for example, a number of incidents where the Prophet of Allah did not hesitate to send more companions in order to call for the sake of Allah. One incident that took place, which is straight after the Battle of Uhud, where the Prophet of Allah, he lost 70 companions as martyrs. We find a tribe called Adam and Al-Qara had come to the Prophet of Allah asking him to send some people to teach them the deen. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he sent them 10 companions led by a person called Asim ibn Thabit. But those people did not want to learn the deen. Actually, they wanted to betray and prove to kill those companions. And it took place. For many of those 10 companions, they were killed and massacred. All of them. From Asim ibn Thabit to the companion Uday ibn Khubayb, and also Abdullah ibn Tariq and Zayd ibn Thinna. All these companions, they have a fascinating story and an incident called Ma'sat al-Raji'. This was only 4 months after the Battle of Uhud. So within 4 months, the Prophet of Allah lost 80 companions. Then in the same month, another tribe, 4 tribes, Banu Ri'l, Banu Dhakwan, Banu Usayya, Banu Lahyan, sent to the Prophet of Allah, we want to learn our deen. So the Prophet ﷺ, because there are 4 tribes, he sent them 70 companions. He knows that those companions were massacred, but he cannot hesitate. He cannot say maybe those people are going to be killed. He thought that these people are genuine and they want to learn their deen. 70 companions. They used to be called the Qurra. Anas radiallahu anhu, he describes them, that those companions during the night, they read the Quran. And in the Fajr prayer, they bring water after they pray the Fajr and put it to those Ahlul Sufa, the homeless people which are not away from the masjid. They put some water for them. Then they go to the market and they fetch some wood and sell it, and then they buy and give it to the people who are financially skilled. Ibadallah, those are called Sab'un Qurra, the 70 reciters. Yet those tribes, they have also proved to be treacherous. In an incident called Ma'sat Bi'r Ma'una, the incident of the well of Ma'una, all of those 70 were massacred except for one, who was managed to go back to tell the Prophet of Allah what happened. The Prophet ﷺ got so annoyed, and he started making dua upon them in every single prayer. In the last rak'ah after the ruku', Allahumma al'an dhikr, ri'an akwan, Allahumma al'an usayya asatillaha wa rasulah, Allahumma al'an bani lahyan. So, Prophet of Allah making dua qunut upon these reciters, upon those the one who killed the reciters. Anas radiallahu anhu, he said, we had revelation from the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Quran was what abrogated about these 70 reciters, where Allah Azza wa Jal, he said, قال اللهم بلغ عنا قومنا أنا قد لقينا ربنا فرضي عنا. This was abrogated. That we are martyrs and we are happy with Allah, and Allah had happy with us. We are happy with what Allah had given us from the Jannah. So there was Quran for those 70 reciters, just to show you that this deen, this Quran, this Sunnah, you have received it through the flesh and the bones of those companions. Yet we have some people or some sects claiming to be Muslims, they have the audacity to speak ill about the companions. Not only that, to defame the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A'udhu billah. They've got nothing to do with the deen. Ibadallah, those are the companions. May Allah be pleased with it. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sends Mu'adh ibn Jabal and another companion, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, to a place called Yemen. And Yemen had the people of the book. Yes, they have idolaters, but most of the people who were there, they were from the people of the book. Christians, Jews, they were residing in Yemen. So he sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal and he said to him and to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, let you know that you are being sent to the people of the book. And let the first thing to be to call them to Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. If they do so, let them know that there is 5 daily prayers they have to do. If they do so, let them know that there is a zakah to be paid on the rich people, taken from their own rich, given to their own people, to their own poor people. If they do so, be careful not to take their precious money, and be aware of the supplication of the wronged one under oppression. For the supplication of the person who is oppressed, there is no barrier between it and the Almighty Azza wa Jalla. Ibadallah. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sends 2 knowledgeable people, Mu'adh ibn Jabal and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, because the people who should call to the sake of Allah, they should have the knowledge. Allah's messenger will not send ignorant people, because ignorance will lead to chaos. About Allah, there was a group of companions. One of them in the desert had a wet dream, and at the same time he was wounded in his head. So he asked his companions, am I allowed to use dry ablution? I can't use the water because the water might cause a fatal injury, and plus I cannot heat the water. So those people who are ignorant said, once you have the water, you cannot use except for the water. You cannot use dry ablution. So the person had a ghusl, washed himself because he had janaba, then he was dead. The illness which was created by this water with this wound in his head made a fatal injury and fatal consequences. He died. Prophet of Allah knew about the case. He said, قَتَلُوهُ قَتَلَهُمُ اللَّهُ. They have killed him. May Allah kill him. إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِيِّ سُؤَالٌ. Verily the answer for the cure for the disease, which is the ignorance, is to ask. Or he wants him to strike his hands, wipe his face and his hands, and that is to strike his hand in the land, wipe his face and his hands, and that's called tayammum. So the person needs to know. If he wants to call for the sake of Allah, he has to be a person who has the knowledge. And that's why the Prophet of Allah, he sent a scholar, Mu'adh. Mu'adh, whom the Prophet of Allah, he said, Wallahi inni la uhibbuka ya Mu'adh. By Allah, I love you, O Mu'adh. And if the Prophet of Allah loves a companion, he's guaranteed paradise. Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he's a scholar whom the Prophet of Allah, he said, take the Quran from 4. One of them is Mu'adh ibn Jabal. As for Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he was a person who used to recite the Quran so beautifully that when he recites in the masjid, the wives of the Prophet, they start listening to him. One day the Prophet of Allah had heard him. He said, this person is being given a melody from the melodies of Dawood alayhi salam. Dawood, when he used to recite the Quran of his, which is a Zabur, he used to recite it in a beautiful voice. The birds, the mountains, the animals, all of them, they sing along with him. So the Prophet of Allah, he said, this person has one of the melodies of Prophet Dawood alayhi salam. Upon hearing this, Abu Musa, he said, Messenger of Allah, I didn't know that you were listening. If I knew that, I would have given you even a better melody. I've given you a second gear. Now, this is my first gear. Ibadallah, this is the companion Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, and this is Mu'adh ibn Jabal being sent to the people of Yemen. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to them, you're coming to the people of the book. That means most of the inhabitants of Yemen are not idolaters. They're not illiterate. They're not people who have nothing to do with the aql. No, those people are knowledgeable. These are the people of the book. So you're going to talk to them in a way which is different that we talk to the idolaters in Quraysh, in Mecca. These are the people who knows the prophets. Let the first thing to call them to is Tawheed. What is the importance of Tawheed? This is what we're going to be discussing in our second part of the Khutbah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he chooses people who are of knowledge for the sake of giving the da'wah. As for ignorance, gets you nowhere. And some people, they spread fake stories to champion the ignorance, where they said there was a person on an island that he was worshipping Allah. And whenever he comes to the prayer, he puts his cloak and his goat and his staff, and he says, "O Lord, my cloak, my staff, and my goat accept my prayer." That was his prayer. Until a scholar, he had docked into his island through the ship or a boat, and then when he saw the person praying this way, he said to him, "My dear brother, this is a wrong prayer." So he taught him the proper prayer, where it's got the Fatiha, it's got the ruku' and the sujood. And then it was about time to leave. When he left into the boat, and he's about in the middle of the ocean, and he says, "O Lord, my cloak, my staff, my goat, except for my prayer." So he wanted now to learn the prayer that the prayer has been taught to him by the scholar. So he sees the boat in the middle of the ocean. He goes running on top of the ocean until he reaches the scholar, and he says, "Scholar, I have forgotten the prayer that you taught me." So when the scholar looks at him, he's got no boat coming on top of the sea. He goes back, go back to your old prayer, for my prayer will never let you to walk on top of the sea. This is an ignorant story which is full of ignorance and champion ignorance and doesn't exist. Ibadallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'idati al hasana." Call to the way of your Lord with wisdom, hikmah. قال بالحكمة. This is not, you have to have the knowledge. قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني. Say to them, this is my way. I call upon the way of Allah with basira, with knowledge. Without knowledge, there will be chaos. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells the companion Mu'adh and Abu Musa that the first thing to be Tawheed. Prophet of Allah, he had taught companions Tawheed for 13 years. In Mecca, Aisha, she said, upon hearing from the other companions, that the first verses which were revealed to the companions at the time of Mecca, in the first phase of Islam, was about fire and about paradise, about Aqidah. Nothing to do. Don't stop drinking, or stop drinking, stop fornication. For she said, if the first verses are to be to stop fornicating, nobody will stop fornicating. If it was to be stop drinking, nobody will stop drinking. 13 years the Prophet of Allah planting in their hearts Aqidah, until they went to Medina. Then the verses of don't drink, don't womanize, don't steal came in the Medina, not in Mecca. So the first thing is to start with Tawheed. And that was the call of all the prophets. May Allah's peace be upon them. Let's listen. For Allah Azza wa Jal, he said about Nuh alayhi salam, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمٍ. Behold, when we sent Nuh to his people, فَقَالَ يَا قَوْمٍ, he said, O people, اعبدوا الله, worship Allah, مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ. You have no God, no true God except for him. About Ad, about Thamud, وَإِلَىٰ ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا. And to the people of Noah, their brother from their tribe, Prophet Salih. قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. He said, worship Allah, monotheism. There's no God for you except for him. قال وإلى عاد أخاهم هودا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره ولقد بعثنا في كل أمة رسولا أن اعبدوا الله واجتنبوا الطاغوت. We have sent to every nation a messenger telling them what? Worship Allah and shun worshipping the Taghut. A Taghut, everything worship beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawheed ya ibadallah. This is the first call to Allah. Then he said, if they have obeyed you for this, tell them they've got 5 daily prayers. 5 daily prayers in the day of the night. If they do that, tell them there is a sadaqah, zakah, to be levied from those people who are rich, to be given to their own poor people. We're not taking the zakah to us, to Medina. No, it's from your rich to your own poor people. Then the last thing he said to them, be aware of taking their precious money. Meaning, if you collect the zakah, don't go to the best. The person who's going to collect the zakah for the sheep, or the cows, or the camels, if he, for example, has to take for every 40 sheep, 1 sheep, he does not go to the best one, to the big one, the one who's got horns. No, he goes from the average one. Same thing with the camels, same thing with the cows. So don't take their precious money. Then he said, be aware of the oppressed supplication. Even if this supplication came from a Ahlul Kitab, from a disbeliever in Allah, if he's been oppressed by you because you have done dhulm upon him, on the day of resurrection, he will take his revenge and he will take his haqq. So that he said, supplication of the person who is under oppression, there is no barrier between it and the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this disbeliever asked Allah against you because you wronged him, you did something to him which is unlawful. Allah Azza wa Jal either will give him straight away the response, or he will hold it for him for later on, or it is on the day of resurrection. And the day of resurrection, there will be no currency except for hasanat and sayyi'at. Ibadallah, this is a reminder for myself and a reminder for you that if you are a da'iyah, to start number 1, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And I ask also the brothers who come to the Jumu'ah to adhere to what the Prophet ﷺ, he said, when you come, don't talk. I have seen some people at the back, and I ask them, inshallah, by the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remember you're going to lose your Jum'ah. You keep talking to each other while the Khatib is doing this khutbah, then you are losing your Jum'ah. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله وأقم الصلاة.